everyone.
Hello and welcome back. So, if you're new to our channel, we are the Neogenian Oculus. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Philip Shope, and this is my channel content co-creator Susan Mitchell. A lot of you know who we are, but thank you for joining us tonight. We have a really good topic, which is what is woke? So, just before we get into that, we wanted to say that our channel is the hub for all things Neogenian. You are our Neogenian community. Thank you for joining us. And here we like to cover concepts, different forms of news, ways of living that are relevant to the Neogenian system. And we like to look at different concepts through the Neogenian perspective. So, since we're talking about woke tonight, woke is a term that's become a little bit more popular in recent times. You see a lot of people using it in different ways, especially sometimes, unfortunately, as a pejorative or kind of a slur against certain groups of people. You see that a lot by the right wing, and we're going to get into all of those things later. So, before we get too far into it, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to everybody for liking this video and sharing to any of your channels if you'd like. Thank you to everybody who super chats. Don't feel like you have to, but that's another option of support if you would like to. And also, just to get into it, I see that we already have a couple of super chats. So, firstly, I'd like to thank Flower Dragon Laura. Thank you very much. Who said, "Just because. Thank you for all that you are and all that you do. By the way, have I told you lately that I love you? I do. Woke and proud of it." Well, thank you, Laura. We also love our Neogenian community. So, thank you for the support. Also, Japheth became a member. Welcome to the Wavelet level. I think that's our lowest level, isn't it, Susan?
The Wavelet,
Which is,
yes, it's
yeah,
it's $2 a month, and it gets you access to our Seek Any level, gets you
yeah,
access to our members only live streams, which we have once a month. And before we forget, next week Philip's working, so we don't have a
mhm,
live stream, but we are planning one on the last Saturday of this month, and we were going to have a members live stream after that, and we have fun stuff to talk about in that one.
yeah.
So,
We have more announcements to make. So,
yep,
also, just moving along, thank you, Becca, for being a member for 11 months at the waveform level. Said, excited for this live stream and so happy to be here among my Neogenian friends. Thank you for joining us. And I know I haven't gotten to say hello to each of you individually, but thank you for being here, everybody. There's a lot of familiar faces. And also, Morg, looking forward to this stream. Thank you so much for supporting. Um, Also, thank you to our moderators. I saw Jan come into the
yep. Hi,
chat,
Jan.
and I think maybe Mark will come in later. So thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah, and
And
hopefully
we look
Elise.
forward to having this
Yeah,
conversation and getting it into the deep of it with you guys.
yeah, and Elise is usually here, so it may
Yeah.
just be a little bit on the late side, but not a problem. So it's nice to see everybody. We'll come in and say specifically hi when we get into some chatting, because I think this is going to be something you guys are going to want to join in on.
Yeah, and also this topic was voted by you guys in our
Yes.
last members only live stream. So every once in a while, we'll have maybe a list of different topics that we could do a live stream on, and this one was what you guys really wanted to hear. And so it's really interesting talking about woke. A lot of people have a hard time defining it because I think it's used in many different ways. So later on in the live stream, we're also going to look at what people say about woke, looking at what people define it as and how they use it. Because, as I said just a couple minutes ago, sometimes woke is used in different ways. Sometimes it's used in a negative way, and sometimes it's used in a positive way of being aware of social injustices in the state of the world. So, we're going to get into that, but we're also going to get into the history of woke. And Susan has some really great information on that,
Yeah,
where woke came from.
originally where it came from, because it started out, it has grown into this more complex definition, which is why some people have a hard time pinning it down for different reasons. Usually the ones who are anti-woke have a little bit of a harder time, or they've, as Spectral just said, they're wrong in their
Yeah.
definition. But it originally started, and I think it's important to recognize this, it started as awareness of racial injustice, social injustice. And the one of the earliest one that, and I got this in several different types of media when I was looking. The Jamaican philosopher and activist Marcus Garvey in 1923, as early as 1923, wrote "Wake Up Ethiopia, Wake Up Africa," but it was Leadbelly. This is the one you're going to hear most often, the one that I've heard most often referred to. Leadbelly, the blues musician, and also, just as an aside, a lot of the people that I grew up listening to, guitarists who I love, I knew the name Leadbelly because they would always talk about Leadbelly and how much of an influence he had been to them. I know Eric Clapton has to have Leadbelly as an influence.
A lot of those great performers came with a inspiration from the blues.
Oh, yes, and there's been a lot of everything music-wise came from the Black community, but that is another live stream. But Leadbelly actually used the phrase "stay woke," and it was in a spoken word piece after a song he had done, and it was in the late 30s, called Scottsboro Boys, about a group of 9, I think, kids, teenagers, who were falsely accused of raping 2 white women. And after the song, he actually used the word "stay woke," meaning, be aware, stay woke, be cautious, be careful. And then, of course, this is something that much later we are familiar with, most of us, in Ferguson, the shooting, the murder of Michael Brown, and then the Black Lives Matter movement, which started using the hashtag "stay woke." And that was specifically about awareness of police abuse. And I remember talking to someone, it was Carrie, by the way, who was on our channel, about something that she had always been aware of, she and her brothers. But she said now people are recording things, people are noticing, and all this stuff just started coming out much more in public, where you could not turn away from it. You couldn't pretend it wasn't happening.
I was just going to say, think of how many horrible things probably happened before we had these as a tool to hold people accountable.
Not probably happened. Did happen.
Oh, it definitely did
happen. And then there was a BET documentary, "Stay Woke," which was in 2016. So there's this history where it started as a spotlight on racism specifically. But then, as you guys know, I'm sure, just in the way that it's being used, the terminology came to include other areas. So sexism, homophobia, anti-LGBTQ things, minorities in general. So woke has become, this is why some people have a hard time, I think, defining it now, because it's come to mean a lot of things. And one of those things, back to the anti-racism part, is awareness of where a lot of these things come from, and the awareness of white privilege, for example, and white supremacy, which we know exist, but it's become the spotlight kind of went from the oppressed group onto, well, what's causing, let's talk about what causes this, what's at the root of it. And I think this is my own personal view of how things developed. Please put your comments in on how you observed it, what you're seeing, what you're thinking about it. But from the way I see it, at least part of it is, once the spotlight goes from the oppressed group onto people who are responsible, those people, even if you're not responsible specifically, but you're part of that group, we are white, so we are part of the white community. A lot of people get their backs up as soon as the spotlight has been turned. And I think that has caused this backlash. We need to do something. We have to shut this down now. and we have to take for the GOP, the conservatives. I think that they take that and they're like, we need to make this into a bad word. We need to turn this into something not good. And
erase the history and erase the education.
Well, I think what happens is, Lee just said, I think about white privilege a lot. Okay, I have so much to talk about this. And in fact, I was thinking today, Lee is one of our, for everybody, anybody who's new, Lee is a really amazing Neogenian community member who does a lot of content himself. And Lee has been on our channel before. And I was thinking, Lee, if this is something you're interested in, I would love to have you on for another talk, because there is a lot more to go into this. Right now, we're basically only have time to cover the history, what people think woke is, and what the reactions are in a very broad way. But getting back to this, because it's connected to what is happening, what the repercussions are, what the backlash is. That when people are made to feel like, the eye is on me now, like I'm to blame, they feel very threatened and want to push back against, we have to shut this down. That's what I just said a few minutes ago. And instead of recognizing that this is a problem that needs to be addressed, and what do we do to fix it? If you ask people who have lived experience, the Black community, and I'm going to just focus on that for the moment, as opposed to, yes, we'll get into sexism and LGBTQ, because that is definitely part of it now. But simply for this, okay, I'm sorry, I'm looking at comments. For this particular topic, just the racism to start with, and that fear of having to deal with it now. There's people who are outright racists who are not going to want to, and then there's people who are like, well, I'm not a racist, so that's good enough, and no, it isn't. And one of the things that we're going to talk about at the end of this is the education that you can get, that it's out there available from amazing content creators who will expand your consciousness on this subject. If you think that you are aware of everything, I can tell you right now, no, you're not.
And you have a list of those creators?
So many. Really amazing. This is just on Instagram. A lot of them also have their TikTok and YouTube as well. But I'm going to write down so many people who have given amazing education. The reason that that's important is because I have seen firsthand how raising consciousness, spreading awareness, educating helps to grow everybody, the whole community. And as you know, we talk about this all the time. What is the one thing we keep coming back to over and over again in how are we as Neogenians going to change the world? And we do it by education, by raising consciousness, by spreading the knowledge that we have about about reality, and the fact that we are all just shards of the one. And I'm seeing a lot of people liking this. Yes, right? So you can see the connection. I see consciousness raising working in this particular arena. And so I know that it works. That's why we do this.
And I think one of the points that you made is a really important one, of saying just because you're not racist doesn't mean you shouldn't further your education and still get involved in the push for change.
There's a couple things, and I could really go off because I have been personally floored by how much I have learned from these amazing content creators. And all of them do such a good job and give you different perspectives, and it's incredible how much effort and time they put into it. And I don't want to tell other people what to do, but I financially support some of these content creators who I really admire, because it's mind-blowing how well presented the information is. So my point is that, yeah, if you think that, and again, this is just about racism, if you think that just being against racism is enough, it's not. That is the lowest bar possible, right? What you need to do is then recognize, and this is what their work has done for me, to recognize white privilege. Like it's eye-opening, and it's not just being told that, it's actually listening to the nuances in the way, and the way they explain this, the situations that they go through, has been just phenomenal for me. And this is something that we do as Neogenians for the topics that we cover.
Where do you find all these content creators? Mostly on Instagram, or?
I have an amazing algorithm now. Sometimes I love my algorithm, because the more I say I like this content, the more of that I get. And so my list is very, very long. I keep trying to shorten it, but I'll come across somebody and I'll say this content is amazing, and I end up following them too. So I get a lot of it, and it's been nothing but positive.
And Becca said, yes, and sometimes raising your consciousness, especially on certain issues, can be uncomfortable, but we don't need to let that uncomfortable feeling stop us. Becca, which is a really good point.
I have been confronted with uncomfortableness, and you know what? Be confronted by it. You have to sit through it. You have to work through that. One of the things that is so just as a tiny example, and I just listened to one of my favorite content creators yesterday saying this, that one of the things that is expected is that you see color. People who say, oh, I don't see color. No, you need to see color. If you don't see color, if you're uncomfortable and you're like, oh, I don't see color, you're denying the fact that differences exist, and though people are treated differently because of it. Recognize the difference. That to me was an eye-opener. Yes, you're going to get vibrational. I have a list. This is just a short list here. That's
for the end.
That's short. I'm gonna get it all typed up and put into the description below. I just didn't have time to. Yeah, I'll put them all in. And they're fantastic. So you can look later. Maybe even I'll put it on the community board. So, and then another thing, so to recognize the white privilege, and also to talk about it. If you can't talk about this, how are things going to get better? Again, that's people, you have to confront any uncomfortableness you have with it. It shouldn't be. And another one is, it's just so obvious. It's, if you see something, and I had this conversation with my mother earlier, it's not just about saying, oh, I'm not racist. I don't say or do or think racist things. Well, that's a conversation for another time, but, because I don't think that that's possible. But if you see somebody else being clearly racist, and it's very, very nasty, do something. Just because
that reminds me of that quote, isn't it Albert Einstein, who said the world will not be destroyed by evil people, but by people who stand on the sidelines and do nothing.
Yes. And I can't tell you how many times when I was much younger, when I would get so uncomfortable if I was around somebody who was racist, but I didn't know what to do. And the fact is, you learn, and a lot of these content creators will teach you how to respond. They don't expect you to be completely prepared to deal with it, but they teach you. They say, this is how you handle that. And I love that about it. So anyway, that's the history of, and we could go on, we could do more. And if Lee comes on, we can, and I think he said he would, so I'm thrilled. We can talk more about it, but there is a lot extra now that it's been grown and then used in this pejorative way, which is really sneaky and a typical, I think, a typical response for what the right does when it doesn't like something. So,
Well, there was a comment by Macronomicus earlier who said the recent insanity around the term is about divide and rule is what I mean. Make some people seem really daft when they change the meaning to play politics, and said, I love the term woke, so I'm sort of irritated by those who pretend it's got a negative meaning. And see, that's why we wanted to, in this live stream, talk about all of the different ways that people describe woke. So later on, we're going to look at a few different definitions that people have uploaded to a website called Urban Dictionary. Now, Urban Dictionary has a lot of kind of jokey definitions on there, but people put what they really think words mean on there. So we're going to look at a couple different ones and kind of give responses to some of the negative, gross things that people say about woke. Now, that being said, I wouldn't even say that I put the label woke on me. I don't do that. I really like the Neogenian system, and it's so well encompassed that I don't really feel like I need to put outside labels on me. And that's perfectly fine if you identify with woke. I certainly identify with a lot of the different movements that woke entails, but you have to understand that with a lot of these different things, there are, Susan, as you and I were talking about, there are fringe elements to stuff. So I don't umbrella that whole term on myself and give myself that label, but I do identify with the social injustice push to make change for all of these different horrible things that are happening, like the racism and the homophobia, the xenophobia that we see in politics and in the world all over, and it's getting worse. I would say that it's worse now than it ever has been. And I think that's why so many people are labeled as woke, because so many people are trying to bring awareness to all of the different horrible things that are happening in the world.
Yeah, I don't necessarily identify with woke personally.
Yeah. But it's not an insult to be called that.
Yeah, it's because I'm Neogenian. If I wasn't Neogenian, I'd be like, oh yeah. But I think we umbrella all of that. So,
Yeah.
but if someone calls us woke, it says, oh, Neogenianism is woke. I mean, no problem. You know, and I go with that now. I mean, I know what the term means, and I am not going to be fooled into thinking that it's some negative thing. I know what it is now, you know. So let's go through some of these Urban Dictionary ones, and then we'll go into how it was weaponized. And I have a couple things like to say about that.
You do want to go ahead with the Urban Dictionary definition?
Do you want to do that next? Yeah,
sure. Some of these kind of made Susan and I.
I'm sorry. I just saw on my note, because I didn't want to forget to do this. This goes back to, I'm going to give one small example of something that I learned that from, I don't even know which content creator. It was such a long time ago now, but it really hit me hard. And it was a monopoly analogy. This is back to racism and really the need for reparations as well, which is an adjunct, I think, like topic. This woman said, think of it this way. There's a game of Monopoly, and everyone's playing. White people are playing, and you're going around Go, and you're collecting $200, and you start to invest in houses and hotels or whatever, and you're growing wealth for yourself. But the Black people aren't allowed to play. They're not going around Go. They're not collecting $200. And there's a direct correlation with the fact that I think it was in the 50s. I could be wrong. I don't know what decade. But there was a push for American families to have a house. It was like, oh, the American dream. You should have your own house. And there were these loans given out to help people buy homes. But Black people weren't allowed to have them. They weren't offered. And so white people were getting their homes, and they're building up wealth. And, you know, that's worth a lot of money when you sell your home ages later, right? So it was building up, but Black people weren't allowed to do that. So they're not allowed to play Monopoly. until eventually they can start playing, finally. So now they're playing. And then what happens? They build up this their own, like, Wall Street in Tulsa, and then it gets destroyed. White people destroy it, and they're not going around anymore. They have to start all over again, basically. So all the white people have this. It's not like every single white family. Like, I know there's going to be people that watch the video and make a comment saying, well, I'm white and I don't have this wealth thing. Well, it's not about that. Of course, not every single white family is going to have that. But the point is that in general, masses of white privilege because of those things, and the difference between the fact that Black families weren't allowed to do that. Black people weren't getting that. And that analogy of this, like, especially that, just like the going around and getting the $200, corollary, was so mind opening for me, because I hadn't thought of it that way. I just, people will say, oh, but there's no discrimination anymore, and there's no, you can have whatever job you want and whatever, but they have no idea that there's this history that was very different for Black people as it was for white people.
Yeah.
So
I think this comment from Madalite, I think is how to pronounce your name, kind of goes along with what you're saying, Susan. Usually when people are called woke as a negative, it's because they're perceived as acting like hypocrites. For instance, it's hard to represent equality when minorities are getting infantilized or misrepresented,
Yeah. Oh, that's this comment.
Yeah,
And then,
I'm trying to catch up on some of you guys' comments. You've made a lot of great ones. Zeus Imad said, I really liked the original stay woke phrase as an instruction to be alert to injustice and not let society oppress you or others.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at woke as being aware of not just racial injustices now, but all of them, and being aware of what people go through, and also the changes that we need to make. Mm-hmm. I was watching a video earlier about somebody it was that woman, it went viral. This woman who was on an interview, she's a conservative author, and she was asked, well, define woke for me, just so we're on the same page, and she couldn't. She just sat there not being able to. She goes, oh, there's a whole chapter in the book about it, in my book about it, but she just went blank. Yeah. And later she tweeted some very sort of concise phrase about the fact that it means making radical change. People who are woke want radical, like, societal changes. And I started to think to myself, no, it's not like we're going to create a whole new country. What we people want is awareness. Yeah. You want
elevated consciousness.
Yes. And what's the one thing that the right then does is say, no, you can't elevate consciousness. In fact, we're so afraid of that we're going to take everything away. You can't learn about this. And we don't want our kids to be upset about history, like truth. And it's just crazy, the spin that gets put on it. But anyway, I kind of hijacked the
that's
where
all right.
we were going
and
with the monopoly.
I think it's great that we're so passionate about it. And in the Neogenian system, you hear us talk a lot about a teleocracy, which would be a purpose-driven society that benefits the quality of life for everybody. And that's what we want. We don't want to, radically change the country and take things away from people. We want to benefit everybody in a purpose-driven society, and where everybody is equal and has equal opportunities.
Yeah, we would make sure that everybody has the basics and access to education. I keep thinking about all of the people who couldn't go to college, for example, because their family couldn't pay for it, which is vastly different from the people who had accumulated wealth. Well, we want to make sure that everybody has access to that from the get-go. So that's why our work is in spreading specifically the Neogenian perspective, and
I
plan.
know it's really scary. You see these other negative actors out there like Ron DeSantis, and the things that you hear these people say that they want to do or that they want to take away, you know, they're basically waging a war on woke, but a lot of them don't know what woke is. They use that as kind of a fear tactic word, just like socialism, just like Marxism. They just throw those terms out as kind of blanket terms,
Yeah, in fact,
to enrage their base.
I'm going to read a quote. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I actually have a Ron DeSantis quote that I want to read to you guys, and maybe we'll do that, and then, oh my God, it's already 9:30. Sorry, and then we'll get into the Urban Dictionary. But here, I'm literally looking at it. This is one of the quotes. This is Ron DeSantis. I recognize that the woke mind virus represents a war on the truth. Like, what? So we will wage a war on the woke. We will fight the woke in education. We will fight the woke in corporations. We will fight the woke in the halls of Congress. And he's absolutely, determined that nothing should be woke. And then I have to go over to where I have this article up. Let me just go do that. And this is from an article in Forbes on the war on woke. Listen to this. So he's described the whole history of woke, or a lot of it. And he says, after all this, what is woke exactly? When asked by a reporter to define the term he loves to hate so much, DeSantis said, it's a form of cultural Marxism. It's about putting merit and achievement behind identity politics. And it's basically a war on the truth. And then the author says, that's a bit of that bit about cultural Marxism is the tell. To DeSantis and his counterparts, woke is the new communism or socialism, the new Clinton or Obama. It's the big, scary word to rile up people and hold the fractious GOP caucus together. And, that told me right there that he knows what he's doing. Like, he knows what he's doing. But, and eventually we're going to hopefully get around to this. It's the threat. They don't want to see anything that bothers them, that makes them feel bad. And they want to stay with their white privilege. They don't want to acknowledge that there's a problem.
And they want to have that power over minorities.
Yeah. They don't. If you have to acknowledge there's a problem, it means then you have to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. It's scary how much they outright say what their plans are, especially like in that quote that you listed from Ron DeSantis, where they say they're going to fight the woke in education and corporations and in Congress. Well, in education, they want to snuff out the true history and personal development of people becoming aware of these issues. And in corporations, they want to snuff out financial fairness for people who are not white. And then in Congress, they want to snuff out people's rights. And that is gay rights. That's all kinds of different rights. You can see all of the different legislation that they've been passing over the past few years that marginalizes people and hurts people.
I think that their idea that it represents a war on the truth is hilarious. I mean, in a bad way, because it's the truth that they're trying to hide. It's the truth that they're trying to not acknowledge. And that, as this author said, was really the tell that's what they're about. I want to read just the ending of this article, because he talks about this was a positive thing, at least a little bit. He said, here's the thing. Most people don't seem to define woke in that way, the way that DeSantis defines it. Thank goodness. As of, this was back in March, it's like a year ago, March 2023, USA Today poll, the majority of Americans, it's 56%, which isn't huge, but at least it is a majority, including most independents and a third of Republicans, believe the term woke to be informed, educated on, and aware of social injustices. That's good. Only 39%, not nearly enough to win an election, think it means to be overly politically correct and police others' words. So that's, it's still 39%, but whatever.
Yeah.
In addition, 56% of workers support DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And 6 in 10 Americans won't work for a company that doesn't speak out against racial injustice. So that's good. He said, and he ends it by saying, in short, the war on woke is not only a political loser, but it's also seriously damaging the fabric of our country. So I thought that was good. I thought that was a good article. Let me come back over here and see what you guys are talking about. So yeah, they're not.
Hey,
it's
Mark.
not too bad. Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah,
Mark said the 39% is the right-wing tinfoil hat set and the MAGAs.
Yeah. I
that's
agree.
True.
Yeah, they're decent statistics. It's better than it could be. I mean, it's not as good as it could be, but it's better than the other way around.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah, welcome, Mark. Glad you got here. And
for anybody who's new, Mark is another one of our great moderators.
Yeah, and Mark's been on the
thanks
channel.
for joining, Mark.
Mark has been on in videos. So if you haven't seen those, or when Lee was on, just go back and look in our previous live streams. So, okay, we have taken up a lot of time on this, but I think
so just before we move on, I saw Laura said she wants to know what's on my shirt. It's the Jägermeister logo, but it's Hagelmeister.
That's hilarious.
So, anyway, I wanted to go through a couple of these Urban Dictionary definitions because, as I said at the beginning of the stream, woke has been hard to define because a lot of people use it in different ways. So Susan and I thought it would be kind of a good idea to go to Urban Dictionary, where anybody can upload a definition for any word. Sometimes they're hilarious, sometimes they're
infuriating,
a little off the deep end. But we thought we would list a few and kind of give our responses to them. So some of them made us laugh. We're probably going to have some chuckles, but also some of them are kind of gross. So just to get into this, we were going to put it up on screen, but if anybody wants to go to urbandictionary.com, you can just type in woke. There's pages and pages and pages of definitions just for this one term. So you can probably find these on there. The first one, I'm going to go ahead and read this, is woke is an umbrella term for individuals who are engrossed by social justice and think of themselves as saviors with moral high ground, but remain willfully ignorant to the irrationality of their claims and the problems they create. These individuals give special treatment to certain minorities in hopes of ending racism and perpetuate mental illnesses as the norm. So the first thing that I wanted to say about this quote in particular is you can tell that the person who wrote it is outright othering and reducing people from what they think is normal and labeling them and pushing them into this box of mental illness. And you can tell that that's just a hatred standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pretty sure that's when we discussed it, I think we concluded that pretty sure that's related to LGBTQ. When they start talking about mental illness, they usually mean trans people, non-binary people, something like that.
And really, when people make comments like this, they're saying that kind of stuff because they, meaning the people who are against woke, they want to push these issues back in the box and back in the closet. They don't want to have to see, anybody that's LGBTQ. They don't want to have to acknowledge it. It's a fear of acceptance and a fear, it's just straight up intolerance towards people who are different than them. That's why I use that word othering. And, we're not saying that we want special treatment for any particular group. We think that everybody should be equal and have equal opportunities. And a lot of people, like this person who left this quote, don't see it that way.
We want special treatment for everyone. Everyone gets special treatment. No, but this person said, I don't want to say it's a he, I don't know who it is, but these individuals give special treatment to certain minorities. Now, in the hopes of ending racism. Well, when you have a segment of society who are discriminated against, and you put some policy through that says, hey, look, there's, we need to have diversity here. Like, how is that a bad thing? How do people complain about that? The special treatment to people who are being treated poorly and in need of help. Of course, we want to get to where that's not necessary, but in the meantime, it is. So to take these programs away is just going to mean a lot of problems coming up. And in fact, I'm sorry, go on.
Oh, I was just going to move on to the next one, but if you still had some stuff to add to that first one.
It's okay.
Okay, so this next one is the one that Susan and I kind of chuffed at. It kind of made us chuckle, not because it's funny, but because it's so absurd. So this next person wrote, woke is an oxymoron term used to describe the many indoctrinated and radically left-wing people of today's world who are obsessed with jumping on whatever mainstream bandwagon is necessary to feel included, though ironically being the most intolerant and hypocritical people on the planet. The irony is the term should be used correctly to describe those who are awake to the modern world. However, these people are so close-minded, they cannot think critically and are actually asleep. So the first thing that Susan and I both thought about that was, wow, that's such projection.
Yeah, that sounds like somebody who is close-minded and can't think critically and is actually asleep.
Somebody who's been indoctrinated to think all of these horrible things about, a standpoint against social injustices. It's sort of an indoctrination on the right wing. Yeah. And you would think that thinking critically would include equality for everyone and tolerance, and we also looked at one of the main words that they left in that quote, which is bandwagon. I think a lot of people in the right wing groups or people who are waging the war on woke, they think a lot of these issues are a fad or that they're going to go away.
Yes.
But, there has always been gay people. There has always been hatred and horrible acts against people of color. There has been all of these different injustice issues that are just, they're not just now coming to light. They're just now being documented more because more people have phones and more people in the world can see it. So these issues are not a fad. I think that person was probably more thinking along the LGBT issues with non-binary people and stuff like that. But it's just absurd to think that it's a fad that will go away.
Also, I think, they might be thinking people are jumping on the bandwagon when actually it's just people who were uninformed and ignorant who become aware, basically wake up and realize it and want to join in the support, just like what we're seeing with people supporting Palestine.
Yeah,
Palestinians.
There's a really great comment from Mark. Mark said the knee-jerk right-wing reaction is that if you're cisgendered, white, Christian, or normie/conventional in most ways, you'll be systemically disadvantaged merely by others gaining equality.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier too, that the people who are privileged, who basically are at the top, think that things are going to be taken away from them, that they're going to lose out, and they just want to maintain their advantage. And that's really, really a backwards way of looking at society and the world.
Yeah. And Jan said it's envy. They have such envy because they fear that equality for others means they aren't special and something will be taken away from them.
Oh, see, same thing. Yeah. And I think this is something that's really, really important that we as Neogenians, talk about all the time, that nobody's having anything taken away. We want to give the same thing to everybody, that we all deserve the same treatment. Yeah. And by uplifting parts of society who have been oppressed, we're making the entire, the collective better. By improving each individual's life, you're making the collective better. That's a really, really important point. So,
and just really quick, hi Elise, I saw you came in. Elise is another one of our moderators. Nice to see you. I think I'm going to skip the next definition just because it's a really long one, and I'm going to skip to the last one here, which is Woke is when big companies like Disney or Marvel or Netflix insert politics, usually relating to an individual's race, sexuality, or gender, into any form of entertainment in a non subtle, often preachy tone in order to get more people to consume the entertainment in question or push a political agenda. And I think that's also a little bit absurd because you see that stuff and you see people react to it and they're so mad because they actually have to see what they can't accept or what they refuse to accept. And Susan and I had a long conversation about this.
Yeah.
They are so mad about stuff like in Disney that's aimed towards younger children. I don't know how many of you saw that new Buzz Lightyear movie. I think it's just called Lightyear. The right wing had an absolute fit because there was a gay kiss in that movie that was maybe 2 seconds long, and they wanted to cancel that movie simply because they didn't want kids seeing two same-sex adults kiss, which is really gross.
There was something else even. I can't remember the show or the movie or the whatever the medium it was, but there wasn't even a kiss. There was nothing. There was just the fact that the main character had a gay friend. And it was like, oh no, we can't have our kids seeing this. It comes down to they absolutely, as you said, they don't want to accept it and they don't want to have it in public where anybody can see it. And that comes down to also what Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida, which is basically to try to make it where you can't appear to be anything other than the gender that apparently they all know you were assigned at birth, or what they think you're supposed to be, but also they really want to keep somehow in protecting children by having them not see any evidence at all of LGBTQ.
Yeah.
And
here's an interesting comment from Jan. Jan says, I feel that is fairly true. Companies do capitalize on woke concepts to pump money. However, right-wing people label it badly from a moralistic view.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is true. I think some companies probably do try to overdo it. I know a lot of people complain about, like, for Pride Month, Starbucks changes their logo, but they don't do really anything to support movements or help people.
Yeah.
What's that called? Where they just kind of do it for is that virtue signaling?
Yeah. I think sorry, distracted. I think there are companies that probably do that, but I think that there's also genuine wanting to be inclusive.
Yeah.
And we need that in media. People need to be represented, and it shouldn't just be in ways that are just as as a token, and I've seen that recently in people with disabilities being represented in who was it was an actor talking about, oh well, I only get parts if it's focused on my disability as opposed to being a person in society. And I think that's really important. You want to see people who represent you. So if companies only do it because they see it's a money grab, then yeah, there should be something other than that as well. But I also do think it's important that things are represented, and the backlash is we don't want to, like with DeSantis, we don't want to see it. We don't want to know it exists. It shouldn't exist. And we're going to fight that.
Yeah. So those were just a few of the definitions that we found on Urban Dictionary that we thought we would comment on. We didn't go too many pages deep into it, but if you guys want to look at that stuff, you can find all of those on Urban Dictionary. Yeah, quite a few. And
Janice,
so, since you were
oh,
talking about backlash, did you want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world right now in terms of
um,
like anti-woke stuff going on?
yeah, I wrote down some of just a few of these things. It's
I'm
kind of,
sure we could have a live stream just all about
uh,
Ron DeSantis
yeah,
and all the horrible stuff he does.
we could, so scary an individual. First, I just want to say, Jan, Jan wrote a comment. I love the Little Mermaid live action. I have the original
The
Disney
new
Mermaid
one.
tattooed. Yeah, and I want to see that. That's on my list. The that just that movie and the way people went bananas over that was insane. Now my algorithm showed me many little black girls who were seeing that for the first time and being thrilled that they
Yeah.
were being represented, and I loved it. It was so heartwarming. But I know that there was a whole whack of people just losing their minds over it. How dare you? It's
Mhm.
like, oh, I just saw something about black Santa Claus just I don't know. I see so many things. I don't pay attention to where exactly. And again, people losing their mind over the fact that there could be a black Santa Claus. Anyway, DeSantis put through the Stop Woke Act, like literally called Stop Woke Act, setting limits on what can be taught about race in schools and workplace training. And
And you
that,
see that in a lot of conservative states. They're starting to try to push this anti-woke legislation.
yeah, oh yeah, it's quite a few other states. It's not just Florida. Florida just has lots going on. It boggles the mind that as we have progressed and should have improved, considering the time difference between when I was a kid and now, and you would expect things to be more modernized. I mean, I know what kind of history I was taught, which wasn't anywhere in depth. I mean, I remember when I was in second grade, I've told you this, when
Hmm.
we did Thanksgiving and we dressed up as pilgrims or Indians, and now it should be a lot different. The way it's taught, we didn't know what was going on. We just thought, oh, that's how the country was
That's what you
founded.
do.
Yeah, that's how the country was founded. There was pilgrims and Indians, and but now you would think that history would be taught more accurately. And I mean, of course, age appropriate. You when you're in first grade, what you're told is much simpler than when you're older and in high school, but it should be more accurate as to the truth of it. But no,
Hmm.
no, we can't have people being made uncomfortable. And I think it was New Hampshire, where parents got so involved, so terrified that their kids were going to be taught something, have something pushed on them, be basically told the truth about
Yeah.
history.
And you see that with like the book bans. There's all these governors and, education
Yeah,
secretaries that want to ban books that are, touching on these issues and all of these different topics with social injustice.
yeah,
And they just want to remove them because they don't want kids to even
yeah,
take in that information at all.
yeah. And in fact, I think that DeSantis even took out critical race theory in public universities in Florida. Don't quote me
Mm.
on that. I think he did, which is really gross. And critical race theory, by the way, wasn't being taught in public schools. That is college courses. We're just talking about more accurately talking about the history of the United States, basically colonialism, which is another huge aspect of this, that it wasn't focused on for me. Anything that makes them feel bad, anything where they think, oh, we're going to lose out, but it's more than just the feel bad, it's the threatening their way of life.
Yeah.
And it's trying to push things away, trying to squash them, has not worked in the past, and it's not going to work. That is not the way forward. That may delay things for a while. It will cause the division between the sides, the people who know better, and the people who want to maintain their privilege. But it's not ultimately going to win out. Ultimately, progression is gonna move forward, because even if it's a little bit at a time, kids are being exposed to, and they won't like this, but the parents won't like this, but kids are being exposed to people who are coming out of whatever confined places they've been, and seeing that that is now going to be the way things are. And kids are very accepting. They're only not when they're taught to be that way. So, I think over time that's gonna win out. Thank goodness.
Well, I think also it's important for people to step up and, play a part in making that change. I saw that Lee made a couple comments just a minute ago, said lots of racism is guised as culture, or it's just who we are statements. And then the next comment was like, that's just grandpa or Uncle John. And he also said, it's like, nah, bro, that's hate and racism. There are a lot of, blanket forgiveness statements for people because they don't want to call it out, oh, that's just funny old Uncle John saying that's a good example. And I think it is important that people call that out. And that's what we talked about earlier with facing that uncomfortability.
And again, that is something that if you look at the resources I'm going to put through, not everybody does this kind of education, but there's quite a few that teach you how to deal with it. And they get questions like, my uncle, my grandpa, whatever, is racist. What do I do? And they teach you and walk you through how do you confront that, because being uncomfortable and not doing anything is not the answer. So, they recognize that people need help in what.
That's probably a really great tool for like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and where you don't see people all the time, and then you're together,
Yeah, that's when at the holiday time, when so many content creators did really good educational videos. Yeah, because it was exactly what was happening. That's a really
And you're going to put that list in the description?
Yes, I am. And this is just the Instagram accounts. There's people who also have, like I said, TikTok and YouTube channels as well. I will try to add some of those if I can, but I'm just grabbing them off of Instagram right now. So yeah, if you add even some of these people in and start watching their videos and liking them, and sharing them, you're going to get a really good algorithm for this yourself, and you'll start to get a lot of other people as well who are fantastic and provide so much good history. I can't say enough good things about how it's affected me personally.
And maybe we can do another live stream in the future on these kinds of topics, because it seems like everybody in the chat, you guys really enjoyed this one, and a lot of you put really great comments through today.
This has been a really great topic. I agree with you. Sinfully said, people of the world deserve healing and education. I hope these people can grow and evolve. And that is what we're all about. I'm going to say it one more time. The only way that we are going to move forward is through raising consciousness. This is a perfect example of this. And we use it in Neogenianism in not just for this, but for not just social things, but also for existence itself, and learning why it is that we are all one, why it's so important to develop the aim for the hyper awareness understanding of what is going on, all the perspectives, of looking at reality, yourself, your place in it, and everybody else. So this has been really great for us. Even just doing the research on, I knew some of the history of where the word came from, but not some of the specifics. And
If you
And
guys have more questions or areas of this that you want us to get into, leave us a comment on this video,
I love,
and let
yeah,
us know.
I love what Lee said. I think most Neogenians and aspiring Neogenians can handle serious conversations to one degree or another. And
Yeah.
Lee, that's absolutely what I want to do more of. And hopefully we can do that when you're on. Because I was saying either to you, Philip, or to my mom, I don't know. But you have to have these conversations. You have
They're
to.
necessary.
They're necessary if we're going to move forward as a collective. So yeah, you have to tackle them head on, and that includes accountability. And I mean, how else? This is part of your own personal growth as well. So this was oh, hi, Joanna. Did you just come in? I don't know. Hi. I never said hi to everybody, but I've seen all your names in here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. It's been great. Remember, 2 weeks from today, another live stream. Hopefully it'll be the one with Lee, but we have to get together and talk. If not, that'll be sometime
with a
soon.
members live stream after that.
And then the members live stream, which I'm hoping I will have some really good information about some things we talked about last time.
Yeah.
And here, let me do this. There's Quokka. There's Quokka for Cassidy. And Quokka that's our mascot, by the way. Oh, really fast. I know we talked about this in our members last time, but we made the decision that because we asked people for the name for our mascot Quokka, and you kind of have to maybe be a channel member to find out why, or we'll tell you some other time. But we went with the name Oculus the Quoculus, and that name came from Mark, our moderator, Mark, and but the Quoculus part came from Kate. I don't know, is Kate in here today? But
I don't know if I saw her.
Kate said, "What about Quoculus?" And I love that. And then Mark came in, I think, with Oculus, the Quoculus. So it is kind of a collaboration, but I thought, what a great name. I mean, Oculus, that's who we are. So that's our
little Quokka.
That's our Quokka.
And also, for those of you who weren't at last week's stream, we also have the new emoji, the inner star emoji that Jan made for us.
Yes, and thank you, Jan. And I saw Lee used it earlier, and there's still conversations going on in there. Lee, I hope that you can do it next week. In 2 weeks, and we will talk to you about it. But it looks like you guys really enjoyed the stream. We enjoyed it. It was something that was a good choice by you guys.
And also thank you to everybody who liked the video, anybody who left us super chats, thank you so much, and everybody who became members and shared their member progress, which I see Joanna just did. Joanna has been a member for 26 months, so thank you so much.
Oh wow, that's a long time. Thank you, Morg, again. Thank you for coming. See you in 2 weeks.
Yep, see you everybody. Thank you and good night.
Good night.